What up? Uh Decided to go. I wasn't gonna go live, but I got another camera. Um so I'm tuning in. Um I'm tuning in because basically I'm buying some more stuff to offset so I can do this live stream better. So I'm getting some Black Magic gear so I can actually live stream better. So and the reason being because this delay between the camera and how I normally do it when I do these live streams is killing me. So so basically, so I'm getting some black magic. I'm getting some black magic gear so I can do the live stream, and I think I'm gonna start doing it through OBS uh and so forth to do these live streams. But anyhow, the name of the subject is the pros and cons of building a conventional recording studio. Um, the reason being that I wanted to talk about this because I saw a video. I was going to post a video, and I guess apparently the video just circulated, even though the video was actually 3 to 4 years old. But the reason why I wanted to talk about it because he did a part one, and then he never did a part two and part three, so you can see him starting the build. And you know how when people do videos like that, you can see there where they'll do part one, then they'll do part two, then they'll part three, and you're like, well, where's part two and part three and so forth. Just like for me, I got to do my tutorial number 2, so I'm going to record that tomorrow for the tutorial that I was doing. I just didn't get a chance to do it. Wanted to take a few days off to go see my family, which I did. So, welcome, Maddie. I say, hey, welcome, and Warheart Arts, welcome. Uh, so, welcome. I'm just going to talk about. I'm going to talk about basically the pros and cons of building a conventional commercial studio, because maybe even I never thought about the cost. I've been to quite a bit of commercial recording studios, but you never really think, it's like anything else, anything that's, it's like McDonald's or Walmart or whatever. When you go into a finished product building or whatever the case, you just see the building's done and it's opened up for business. But you never think about the cost, what it costs to build the roof, the walls, the wiring, the plumbing, all this stuff, right? So what sparked me to talk about that tonight was simply because I was watching that video, and he made it 4 years ago and he only did part one. And then he finally did a video, I think it's only about 8 or 9 months ago, why he was explaining why he never finished. And basically he explained he ran into some obstacles such as HVAC, quite a few other issues that he ran into that he didn't think about, and they didn't think about either. So they never finished it. And it made me think, it's like the same reason why even in here, why don't this is a house, like this setup that I have with the console and all the outboard gear is in my bonus room. This bonus room is not very big. It's, I would say, it's the typical bedroom size room. As air conditioning, basically HVAC, home ventilation. It stands for home ventilation and air conditioning. That's what HVAC, So so basically, so he when he did the video, they were all excited because they were starting to tear down walls. They were doing the demo, which is basically tearing down the walls and starting building the walls that were going to be the control room, a live room, and stuff like that. Now, this was going to be in this basement. But what he was going for is basically the same style of recording studio that you would go into a commercial studio, but it was going to be in his house. And I said, well, we all know about that because, um, like most of us have our recording studios in our home. Now, the reason why I never decided, first of all, my house is only a two-story. If I had a basement, that's where I would like to have all this gear in the basement and so forth. But the problem with also a basement is that you have potential problems for leaks, especially flooding or pipe issues or whatever the case, or heating or whatever the case may be. All those have to be addressed. But um, so I said, well, let's talk about the actual commercial studio cost. And when you start seeing these big majors recording studios such as Blackbird, um, let's see if I can think of a few. Criteria, which is the Hit Factory, or East West, or Larrabee, or recording studios of that magnitude, just the amount of the wiring and the cabling, I would say minimum $100,000 to $150,000 in cabling, easy. And some people may not think that's, but easy. So cool. Welcome, man, to work. I see people popping in. Andre, welcome, Andre. So let me see. Okay, we got some. Welcome, Rob Portiga. I'm just trying to see who's all popping in. Welcome to DL. Just trying to see who's popped in. So, so the cost, if you think about to make rooms within rooms, what they call floating rooms, the cost that Dave, I know he just said, yeah, Dave, welcome. Everyone's tuning in, popping in. Man said, I missed that start. Who's the person building this? I got to go back. I think it was Brett something. I have to go back and look at the video of my history, and if I remember, I'll put a link. But I think the name of the video was building my dream home recording studio. It was part one, something like that. You might be able to search it on YouTube. And so he brought in some teams in that video, and they were, whatever the case, you can see where they were starting to do the demo and starting to do the build and measure. But anyhow, all the typical, and I think what he was, yes. Oh yeah. Matt says Red Skull, or yeah, that's it. Welcome, Jeffrey. Welcome. Man, that's right. Yeah. Red Skull. So I was watching that video and I was thought about it. I said, yes, that is the cost. Because I'm still not done. I still got to buy racks for the rest of my gear. I still got to get more mic stands. The cost is, now there are people that probably feel, well, I'm not going to ever go. I'm going to be happy with I'm just going to get me maybe an Argosy studio desk. I'm going to, maybe do some acoustic treatment in my bedroom, set up, my Mac or PC or whatever. I'm going to, just run my DAW, get some studio monitors, maybe a couple of pieces of outboard gear, whatever the case, and I'm good. And there are a lot of people doing it that way. I've said time and time again, there are lots of people that are doing that way. But then what he was trying to do, and what a lot of people that try to do in commercial studios is, commercial studios are more idea for live band / orchestra recording, more than anything. So they're looking to have that separation of a control room, of course. And if you decide you're going to have some people have a console in their control room, some people don't. But a lot of people will have the outboard gear, the preamps, the compressors, the EQs, and maybe more outboard gear, like maybe delays, whatever, reverb. Some people are using plugins. A combination of both for being hybrid. And then they're in their live room, they want to be able to record a band. They want to be able to bring in a drummer. They still want to be able to bring in some guitar players, some bass players, maybe keyboard player and so forth. And they still need to have some sort of that type of separation, and maybe have gobos, and or be able to put isolation areas where they can put a guitar rig in such another room and mic it, whatever the case may be. A lot of times, whenever you listen to a lot of records, I'm talking a lot of records that were made, we're talking a lot of bands that goes to a commercial studio. A lot of that, where you see the control room, where there's a console in there, the outboard gear, and so forth, where the engineers are, and then of course the live room, which is in another room, and they have drum isolation or whatever the case may be, or the musicians are in different parts of that live room or whatever case, maybe the vocalists in the vocal booth or whatever. If you ever wonder why those records sound so big, well, a lot of that is the rooms and how that's done and how that's recorded, is how they get those big sounds. The preamps, the microphones that they're using and so forth. And so he was trying to go for that. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But the cost of everything, the cost to do that is shoo. So that's the reason why I'm like, I thought about, man, I would love to have a commercial recording studio setup where I got a control room, and they made my live room have 24 foot ceilings. I have a big room, at least a 2-story live room to record a band and stuff like that. Would love it, but that's extremely hard to do in a house, especially if you got a family. It's hard to do. There are people that are getting ways around that, but I just, so the cost. I was watching a video with Blackbird with, I think he was sitting down with, of course, the owner, John McBride and Vance Powell. We're doing a video, and he was like, well, let's say it's going to cost, they estimate $1 million, but really it's going to cost you more like $4 to $5 million, because the other 3 or 4 million are in hidden costs. Like, you didn't think about having a massive star ground system, things like that. You didn't think about the wiring that, and we're talking top quality wiring. You didn't think about how much it's going to cost to construct each room, rooms within room, floating rooms. You're sitting on slabs, which is sitting on, ice, whatever the case may be. Then they have sit on more slabs of concrete or whatever the case may be. All that, and he's like, oh man, I didn't think it was going to cost me $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or whatever. It's going to cost $100,000 and whatever. And the construction is, yes, it's expensive. And that's just to build the shell of the recording studio. That's not including the gear, the consoles, the outboard gear, the microphones, the cables for the microphones, building panels for the walls, tie lines, setting up an extensive patch-based system. It's so, and then on top of that, in this day and age, it was that all that was kind of necessary, because you're going to get an ROI, return on your investment for these recording studios, right? Because these big time studios, if they went that extreme, they would be able to generate clients like Madonna, Britney Spears, J-Lo, Jay-Z, YouTube, AC/DC. I mean, they're gonna generate clients, and then of course independent clients. They're gonna generate bands, and they're gonna generate So it wouldn't been, so you went that far out. But this day and age, recording studios are, they're still, I'm going to say like this, Nashville's scene, as an example, is still stronger than most because Nashville still use session musicians to do all the music. There's still live musicians recording in Nashville for country and western. They're always going to be live. That's just the Nashville thing. But LA, New York, where a lot of music is being substitute out of live, instead of having live musicians, you have electronic music. Instead of having a drummer, there's a drum machine or programmed drums. People are just doing overdubs and not really, whatever the case. And this is happening in New York. This is happening overseas. This is happening in LA and so forth. So recording studios started shutting down because they just aren't, there's not thousands of recording artists that are getting hundreds of $1,000s advance to record labels going to these recording studios like that anymore. A lot of times, most of these recording studios are renting out their studios to independent artists. So that, instead of being $500 an hour, more like $75 to $150 an hour. Yeah. Oh, let me see. Get some more. Yeah, I got a lot of. Let me see. I missed some comments. Oh, Warheart Art says I could never bring a band. Me either. I mean, it would be like I could record the drummer in my other room. Then I would have to find a spot for the guitar player. Maybe it would, maybe the bass player can over there. Maybe then the keyboard player, they could do their part, and then I could bring back what. It would be awkward. It would be. I just wouldn't want to do that. It would be no. But I get it. Yeah, low ceilings ain't no. It unless you're trying to get a more of a dead sound from your drums. It's not really a big factor for the guitar or bass player on low ceilings. Definitely not keyboards. Most of that stuff is direct DIs, direct input. But it says man, so I got 18-foot live room here, but that was Shelter House was already built. Yeah. It's kind of like if I wanted to, I could record downstairs, and my downstairs to my upstairs is about 20 something feet. If I use my hallway, if I go downstairs and use my hallway going into my living room has it's a tall ceiling. But then I was, now we're talking about moving couches and no, I just so. Oh, Ago says 5750. Yeah. Let me see. So let me see. Dios asks, what much is the fee after building a studio like that? How much would a person have to charge to be able to afford to build? How good do you? And here's the thing: track that level of business. Okay, what's going to happen? This is a good question. That's a good question, DL. Okay, on that, let's say you find a building, because it's not going to happen in your house unless you are in like Berry Hills of Nashville. Let's say you found a building, a commercial building, just a building, and it's got zoned where you can actually make that a recording studio. Because if you're going to do that, a lot of times you got to make sure you got to check the city ordinance, all that, to see if it's zoned for recording. Because sometimes they don't want it to be a recording studio because of noise, even though you're going to do sound isolation and all this other good stuff. But the thing is, let's say you by fortune able to get enough, I don't know, business loan or whatever, $750,000 business loan, whatever. I don't know how banks are giving that kind of money out, but let's say that happens. Let's say you figure in the cost. Okay, it's going to cost me $50,000 for the demo, because you're going to make sure that the room is whatever. Then you're going to have to hire, to do it right, hire a studio, professional recording studio designer, so they can look at the dimensions of the building. That might cost whatever the contract for that is. Excuse me. So you're looking at the cost of that. Let's say $3,000 for that. Then they estimate, okay, well, we're going to build the control room, the live room. You're going to have a lounge. You're going to have, bathrooms, and all that. So they construct it. So the total cost of the build for all that in wood and supplies is going to be, they estimate 75,000. I'm just throwing numbers out there. So you're like, okay, that's in my budget. But really, you might as well double that because you're going to run into obstacles. You do all that. You start you got the contract, you got the go. Now you can do the demo, you start doing the construction. Then you got to bring in the wiring guys that's going to wire up all your wiring to connect your live room to the control rooms. They got to get the cabling and all that. Then you got to hire the people that actually do like the patch bays, because a lot of that stuff is hand soldered. And so let's say now we're $250,000, $300,000, whatever. That's just to build the basics of the recording studio, the live room, and all that. Not including, you got to make sure that the control room is going to fit the gear that you're going to use. Well, I'm going to use a console. I'm going to have, are you going to have a 72 channel? Are you planning on recording orchestras? Are you planning on just recording small bands? All that has to be thought of before you even thought about buying a console and interface that you're going to use. Are you going to buy, are you going to get what interface, a Burl, or you're going to get a Apogee Symphony or whatever. And then now I got to think about preamps, outboard gear. And I got to think about mic stands. I got to think about all the acoustics and the gobos and all that. So let's say your budget now you're 500,000 to 800,000. I don't know. Then, so now you're like, I got all this. Now I call myself Legend Sounds Recording Studio. You get an LLC. Legend Sounds become approved as an approved title. No one's using that name. You can use that name as Legend Sounds Recording Studio. Now, how do you generate the clients? Well, producers and artists are going to look at your recording studio based on the gear that you got. So if you say I got a Neve VR 48 channel console, okay. They're going to say, okay, he's got the console. Because most of them are going to be looking for a studio with a console. They're going to look at what kind of microphones you got. Well, I got Neumann U87, Neumann 47s, Neumann 67s. I got Telefunken 251s. I got Neumann M49s, Neumann 50s. I got this many mics or whatever. I got SM57s. I got SM58s. I got Sennheiser 421s. I got Royer 121 ribbons or whatever. You loosed your mic. Okay. All right, what kind of mic pre's you got? Well, I got Neve 1073s. I got Neve 1084s, Neve 1081s. I'm running API 312s. I got 8 of those or whatever. I'm running Focusrite ISA 110 preamps. And okay, he's got the pre's. Okay. Then they're going to look, you're going to put your pictures on your website of Legend Sounds. They can see the control room. They can see what the live room looks like. Then next, because you got a studio, you hire a studio manager. Well, a studio manager is the one that's going to book your clients. And are you bringing, when they want to book it, are you bringing your own engineer, or we need to supply a house engineer? We have a house engineer. This is the cost. This is what we charge an hour. If you accept, and so forth. Once Legend Sounds, and let's say you bring in, it could be an independent artist, and they blow up. They become big, and they recorded that Legend Sounds. That reputation will also start generating more clients. And before you know it, your studio manager, your studio is getting booked. And before you know it, let's say Mariah Carey wants to record at your recordings because she heard this number one artist recorded Legend Sounds. Now she wants to book, but you only got one control room and one live room, and it's booked. So now I gotta expand. So because of all the money I'm making, because there's overhead, there's assistants you got to pay, the studio manager got to pay, you need a maintenance crew. So let's hope you're not upside down when you start booking these clients. With all that being said, your studio start generating actual profits. You make enough profit. Now we got to take all that profits to expand and build control room number 2. Now that's going to be out another 6 to 9 months to build control room number two. Now you got two. And let's say you might want to build with that. Let's say you want to get into mastering. You got to think about all that. So that's how you're going to generate clients, based on your studio build and what you got, if that makes sense. So, Warheart says old houses are terrific. It depends on the house. So, Ego said, make sure the drummer tunes the drum heads to the actual tune before you. Hopefully, if it's a solid drummer, you as an engineer shouldn't have to tell musicians that. So, it just depends on because they, you probably can kind of sense if they're an experienced band before they even come to the studio to book it. So, oh, I got you. Welcome CC Funk. Let's see. Oh, Warhurst says, he says, what if some idiot comes in and damages something, like, he got stupid and was banging on the drums, and all of a sudden he hit some of your expensive microphones. Well, that's damage. You gotta kind of include that. That's why you want to have more than just, let's say you only got 3 Sennheiser 421s. Well, you better have some spares, because sometimes, especially when it comes to rock and thrash and metal drummers, they get the yeah. So yeah. So welcome Spawn, says salute. And then so let's see, Tactical MIDI, welcome. Like I said, I'm just talking about the pros and cons of, because here's the thing, let's say you had the budget to build a really nice commercial studio, or let's say you had the budget to expand your house and add on a couple of rooms to do it in your home, or whatever case, and you turn, whatever the case, and that you're going to bring in clients to your home recording studio, whatever, and you got this lavish build. Sometimes you can do all that and you're hearing crickets. So it's like, well, I have Legend Sounds recording studio, but I ain't got no clients. It's like, I sit there and bought all this gear and got no clients. It's like, I would say, for example, me, I only deal with a very, 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 very small amount of people. And the reason being that I only deal with a very, very small amount of people is because this is my house. Not everyone that you meet when it comes to clients is going to have your best interest. I heard it so many times where even when these guys are doing studio tours, whatever the case, that's why most of the time, believe it or not, one of the most stolen thing out of recording studios are microphones. Believe it or not. Most of the time they don't really take a lot of, they ain't taking the console weighs, even this console. They're not taking this console weighs 150 pounds. And maneuver through this door. You'd be amazed how I got this console in his room, and I did it by myself, and it was not easy. And this console is not light. So they're not stealing the console, and most of the time they're not going to steal rack gear, because rack gear is bolted in. So the small items is what comes up missing, especially microphones. SM57 is an easy mic to steal. So that's probably why Shure makes them, why they're so easy and affordable, because you can afford 500 SM58 microphones because people steal them. Maddie too says, I don't want clients. So Let me see. Oh, he says those PAL cheapo drum mics die from one way. PAL, yeah, those aren't the PAL drum mics only like $99 on for a kit on eBay or something like that. Um, oh yeah, man says man musicians that come in pay and sign an insurance probably for their time plus gear and mics don't break on their own. Oh, right. Uh, so let me see. Oh man says I've had mics stolen. They had doors kicked in by the police, CCTV for the win. Yeah, like me, I got cameras. Uh, I got cameras, and it's kind of like even right now in my if you come to my studio, I don't know if you this camera pick up. Let me see for the show. Right now, I'm gonna show the camera. You don't know if you can see that. That's not a good angle, but that's live feed right now of the camera. When you walk in, you can see the console and the speakers and all that. That's live feed right now. So uh yeah, it's kind of like if I'll put my front door, right? So yeah, I'll do like yeah, that's another live feed. You walk through my front door, my camera's got you. I don't know if you can. Yeah, it's not a very good because of the lighting. So that's my front door. So yeah, I got like 14 cameras. I got you when you walk into the driveway. I got you walking up to the door. I got you when you walk in the studio. I got you walking in through my living room. Yeah, but yeah. Oh, someone says I got guns. Yeah, I got some guns too. I was military, so uh let's see. So man says people ask all the time. I say no. I just me because it's my house. Um, so let's see. Oh, okay. I'll say engineers think where I compete for work. How I imagine how you have to be good enough to get a high level work. And that's like anything. Is like you think about it. I'm just gonna put. Let's say you wanted a recording engineer, and it's kind of like let's say this guy named John Williams. He's a recording engineer, and then there's Andrew Sheps. Who you gonna hire? Right? You're like John Williams or Andrew Sheps. So Andrew, then also John Williams might be charging cheaper. Let's say Andrew Sheps is going to charge whatever he's going to charge, maybe it's going to be a lot more. But Andrew Sheps is going the reputation you're to get if you get Andrew Sheps. So it's kind of like who are you going to hire? Most people are going to go with Andrew Sheps. So that's the competition of where the case may be. Oh, yeah, it says Ago says, yeah, they love to steal. Yeah, like I said, microphones is probably the number one stolen thing out of anything. So RDL says, how is one person supposed to do all that? You'd be amazed. Experience. That's all that's how one person can do it. Experience. So I just accidentally put an LA2A in their. How do you accidentally put an LA2A compressor in your pants? The thing is this big. So yeah. There's no way you can steal that without not being seen. The only way you can steal that is no one was around to see you steal it. But like I said, I got cameras and they're motion detected. So when they see motion, they start recording. So I have to clear my recorded feed. Even when I'm walking around, it's recording me. So I have to get rid of all that extra recording feed. And believe it or not, War says start where you can. Believe it or not, all the big names didn't start off as big names. A lot of people started off as interns and everything else, and then their break came. But a lot of this just happens over the years. Um, a lot of this, whatever case. So um, it's just a matter, whatever case. Now, Warhart says Sheps is in the box nowadays. Trust me, if the pay is right, Sheps will work. If if you had to go to a recording studio and where there's a console and outboard gear, trust me, the pay is right, Sheps will do it. He definitely would do it. No one's turning down money. That's just not even the big names, you know. So let's see. Oh, you said I heard about, yeah, actually that's about right. $10,000 a track is, yep. But yeah, remember, this is also the people that are sending these money to these top mixers like Crystal Algae. Well, you talking to artists like Justin Timberlake, you know. But believe it or not, there are thousands of really, really good mixing engineers and recording engineers that you've never heard of that are doing this every day. A lot of times when we think of the engineers, this is the ones that always, that you see all the time, like Sylvia Massey or Crystal Algae or Manny Merrigan or Joshua Jason or Dave Pensado, Andrew Sheps, and so forth. Tom Lord Algae, his brother, and so forth. But there are, uh, so many mixing and recording engineers you never heard of that are doing this every day in studios. So let me see. Like I said, that's why it's always good that, oh yeah, make sure you don't take anything. Let's see. Most of the time when, like if someone comes in here, I've had a couple of strange people in here, but it's the first time they see cameras. They're like, oh, there's cameras. Yeah, there's definitely cameras. So, Matt says it's kind of fair enough that they have like $1 million worth of gear. And got members, here's the thing. Here's what's not also told. These mixing engineers and recording engineers and so forth, master engineers, they actually go from studio to studio. So just because you see, you may see, I'll say Michael Brower as an example. Let's say Michael Brower is working at Electric Lady in New York, but that's not the only recording studio he's working at. Or Joe Ciccarelli, most of the time Joe Ciccarelli is working at Sunset Sound. That's not the only recording studio he's working at. He works at a lot of them because he's a hired engineer. So the studio and the gears, most of that stuff is owned by the recording studio. And then there are always some pieces of gear that each engineer like to bring on their own. Like Jack Joseph Pewitt, he liked to bring a lot of his own outboard gear. So a lot of stuff will be on roller racks, racks with wheels on them, and they'll bring it in. They'll just patch that stuff in. So, let's see. Did I miss something else? Yeah. Like I said, that's what man just reiterated. I was just saying, yeah. Let's see. Would I suggest buying a used Warm Audio 8000 microphone? Oh, if you get a good deal on it, in a heartbeat. I would, yeah. I'm not, majority of stuff I got is used. I would say when you're buying used, there's always that 1 or 2%, I would say 10% chance that you buy something that is broken. That's just the nature of used gear. But I would say 90+% of all the gear I bought that's used works perfectly fine. So if you get a good deal on a used Warm Audio, which is 8000, which is the emulation of the Sony 800C or 800G, something like that. The C800G Sony. It's the microphone with the heat sink on it. And you can find, I think Warren Meyer was trying to sell that for $9.99 or something like that. But let's say you found it used for $4.50. Yeah, buy it. You know, here's the thing about clone gear that's used and you buy it pennies on the dollar. If it didn't work, I would rather, yeah, I'm going to be mad because it don't work. Right. But I'm not out of that kind of money. Let's say I bought a Pultec, an authentic Pultec EQ. And let's say Pultecs are going for average, what, $4, $5, $6, $7,000 or whatever, right? Depending on who's price gouging, right? And let's say I saw one for $1,500. A Pultec for $1,500. A lot of times, you know, it's this thing that we're doing dominoes called all money ain't good money. And a lot of times, $1,500 on a Pultec, let me buy it. Then you get it in the attenuator on the high end doesn't work or whatever. You're gonna be mad, you know, because I'm like, I think I'm getting a Pultec or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of like a chance with used gear. Then there's been times where you could buy some brand new gear and it don't work. So it's happened, but it's less likely. So let's see. Robert, bring the machine. That thing goes bing. Okay, gotcha. Oh, Jack Joseph Purick is my favorite mix. Oh, okay, gotcha, Maddie. Jack Joseph, yeah, everyone knows him. He's got that when he was at Ocean Way, and he had, I don't know how many racks of. I don't know who's more of a outboard gear junkie. Who's got more, I get it, having enough tools, enough colors to paint the palette, but Jack got a lot of outboard gear. And I thought I had a lot of outboard gear. Jack got a lot of outboard gear. Welcome Zone Recording Studios says for you, it is very expensive hobby. I did have one client that lasted about 2 years, which to me was a fluke. I was hiring musicians, video peeps and whatnot, and it was great while it lasted. Yeah, I get, it's kind of like used to be, if you're in the recording studio business, especially the professional commercial studio business today, you're not gonna. It used to be a lot of, back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, recording, they're definitely making the money because they were getting clients from all the big labels. But today, I hope you're not in it for the money. It ain't there like it used to be. So, oh yeah, Ward says Chris Lars doesn't get sync crap. He only receives proper tracks. Amateurs like me receive rupture. Here's the thing. With Chris Lordology, here's what Chris Lordology does. If you send him some tracks and they're recorded bad, he's not going to mix them. He's not even going to take the work. That's just the way it is. A lot of times, here's the thing. Let's say with Chris Lordology, let's say you want him to mix it. He's probably going to ask you, where'd you record it? If you say, I recorded in my bedroom, he's probably not going to. He's probably. Now, if you sit there and send your stuff and say, well, where did you record it? At Blackbird. He'll most 90% of the time take the track because he knows Blackbird. He knows what kind of studio Blackbird is. If that makes sense. So he already knows if you went to Blackbird and you had a really good engineer, he already knows the drums are going to be recorded well because Blackbird's got the rooms for it and they got the gear. He already knows the guitar is going to be recorded well. The bass tracks are going to be recorded well. The vocals and everything else is going to be recorded well because you went to Blackbird. So yeah, he'll definitely mix it. And that's the same with any of them. Dave Pensar was, any of those kind of engineers, Sylvia, any engineer like that, Where'd you record it? Well, I recorded my basement. You know, that's the first thing they're gonna think. Unless you show them a picture of your basement, they show your basement, all of a sudden they look at your basement, it looks like a professional commercial recording studio in your basement, and they might consider it. But if if you did it on, well, I did it with a Focusrite 2i2 and Pro Tools, they can like, So, but anyhow, oh yeah, Baxter, yeah, he started with Bob. Bob Clearmountain was his mentor. So and Bob Clearmountain started, like the power station in New York. I mean, if anyone's seen that recording studio, well, Bob Clearmountain helped design those live rooms and all that. But they were at a studio prior to that one. But Bob Clearmountain's reputation speaks for it. I mean, all you gotta do is go back and listen to Let's Dance by David Bowie. Yeah, that's Bob Clearmountain. Or, listen to Chic by, Good Times by Chic, or go listen to he went solo from the Eagles. I forget his name, but he used to be lead singer for the Eagles, But Bob Clearmountain's reputation's long when it comes to mixing. Is by discography, or I don't know, engineerography is huge. So let's see, Robert said there's still plenty of money. Well, yeah, there's I'm not gonna sit there and say I'm not gonna sit there, people aren't making money, because people still go to live shows. People still, there's still the Grammys, but the billions of dollars that it used to be is not there. So welcome, Ryan. Okay, he says, Ryan says I mix producer mix. He says my wife has sometimes. My wife has questions sometimes. That's true, but I have a plan. So, gotcha. Okay. Well, wives, if they're not into the same thing, if you're into music producing, all that, and the wives aren't, they're always going to have they will always have questions. Why'd you buy that new preamp? Why'd you have to buy that microphone? They're not going to understand. Welcome, Seven Sun Music. We got a pretty good extensive audience tonight, but welcome. Which is, it sounds, Seven Sun said he had a client that stole some pens and clipboard. I believe it. So Ego says garbage in is garbage. We're talking about the recording. Yeah, that's like anything, bad data in, you're gonna get bad data out, right? So yeah, that's why we say the most important thing is the front end. You can only mix a good front end if you want to get a good master, because in the end, it may sound crazy, because we always talk about mixing engineers and all that, but the thing that people are hearing in any recording, whether you want to believe it or not, the thing that people are hearing the most in the recording is the front end. You're hearing a mixed and mastered version of the front end. So the recording, right? So the recording's bad. That's what people are going to hear when it's distributed on the radio and iHeartRadio and so forth. So yes. Let's see. Warhard says, well, somebody got a pony up $10K per song. Yeah, it's just big names out there. But what I can say is, as people get better and better in their home recording studios, I give it about another 10, 15 years, and that won't be the case anymore. So, oh yes, John Burke came to the powers because I can believe that. New York, and then of course Bon Jovi being from Jersey. Well, Jersey and New York are right next to each other, so yeah, that makes sense. So, War says Glenn Fry. 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 Glenn If we're talking about the lead singer from the Eagles, I don't think that Glenn. I don't think that's his name. Let me pull up Glenn Fry. Let me see. No, I'm talking about the lead singer from the Eagles. Is uh, let me pull up. I gotta pull up the Google. Former lead singer Eagles. Oh, he went Glenn Frey. Okay. Okay. Glenn Frey. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I saw Glenn Fry. Okay. Glenn Frey. That's right. Okay. Yeah. And let's see. Uh let's see. Let's see. Yeah, but the singer I was talking about from the Eagles, I remember Glenn Frey, but it was Don Henley. That's the singer I'm talking about. Don Henley. So yeah. So Dia says, let's see. So what does it mean that we need to focus on learning how to track at home really well? How to get the levels right on our interface and all keep sounds environmental. Well, like I said, if you're doing direct input, the ideal is to make sure when you're checking your levels that that you're not always going completely to zero. A lot of times they, at least I would say maybe go up to negative 18, around in there. That way to give yourself some headroom, give yourself some space. Um, when it comes to microphones, you just got to kind of listen to it. That's why you're monitoring. That's why a lot of times engineers like to listen through the consoles. They can hear exactly how the microphone sounds before they even start recording it. And then they can adjust the microphone in proximity of the source. That they need to move it close to the amp, a little bit too far, is it too close to the amp, they'll pull it far back. And then on top of that, a lot of times do the figure it, have it on cardio pattern, figure of 8, and so forth. I need to make sure that I'm on cardio pattern and so forth, especially when I'm using a condenser, things like that. And then, like I said, a really good room will keep a lot of, with sound isolation. Because a lot of times with the hardest thing to record is drums, because you get bleed. You can get, you're trying to record a snare, but it's also picking up the toms, it's picking up the hi-hat, it's picking up whatever the case, the overheads are picking up, whatever the case. So sometimes you end up using gates and expanders, and setting the threshold and so forth, and the attack and all that, how fast you want the gate to close. So every time with the snare, the gate closes so it doesn't pick up all the other stuff. When you set the gate on that kind of stuff on the, when you're doing the drum recording. So let's see. Sound Blaster, welcome Sound Blaster. Does saturating help an EQ become more responsive in frequencies you are boosting or cutting? Not necessarily. Saturation is just going to saturate whatever EQ, whatever tone you're EQing. Believe it or not, on equalization, the biggest thing that you're trying to do with equalization is just you're trying to make the signal as clean. And you're not trying to have these frequencies of the tone competing with other frequencies. That's the object of an equalizer, to equal out unwanted frequencies. But if you saturate that, it's just going to sound saturated, if that makes sense. So welcome Secret Studios. Um so I said, what's up, Pathfinder? Uh that's the military thing. I thought I saw that earlier. What's up, Pathfinder? Oh, Rob Portiger says, my mentor is Kevin McCluskey, 5-time Grammy nominated, 3 times platinum. He works at home. Gotcha. Okay. Like I said, I've never heard of Kevin McCluskey, but once again, there's so many engineers out there that've mixed and recorded records that a lot of us never heard of. So that's why I like about buying, when you could buy the album and look at the credits and see who the engineer and the recording and all that, and what recording studio was recorded at. You know, you don't see that a lot anymore, but that's how you found out. You would buy an album and you could look at the songs, who wrote the songs, maybe even the lyrics in there. Then after that, a lot of times they tell you the engineer, the assistant engineer, the musicians who play the instruments, the whole, and what recording studio was recorded at. So, oh, let's see. Yes, your oh man, says, yeah, the front end's the bread and butter. Record like you know what you're doing. Yep. That's 100% accurate. They says, I saw a video produced like a pro show of Dave. It's a shame. I used to look at his YouTube channel from time to time to see him like that. Is heartbreak. Oh, Dave. Yeah. Dave. Well, I haven't seen anything lately. But yeah, the last few times he looked like I don't know if he's getting, he got cancer or what, who knows? Cancer is no joke. So yeah, Glenn Frey, your War Artist writing Glenn Fry, but Glenn was spelled 2 N's and Frey, F-R-E-Y. I remember Glenn Frey, but when you hear, Glenn Frey died almost 10 years ago. When you hear, like Hotel California, that's Don Henley. When he was solo, she wants to dance. That's Don Henley. Oh yeah, you're good. He said Frey, my bad, Frey. Yeah, you're good. So you're good. I've misspelled stuff too. Spawn says, I thought we set the unity. No, you want to give yourself a little bit of space on that recording. You don't want to always go to unity, especially really hot sources. Because if you go to unity, you're not gonna have much headroom after that when it comes to actually time to mix it. But you want to have enough signal that you don't have any noise floor. In other words, you want to reduce any noise. You want to have the cleanest signal possible. But no, you don't have to go to unity. The idea is not to go completely to unity. There's a big thing on gain staging, and setting your levels. Let's see. Matthew said, I thought I had mono once. Turns out I was just I was just bored. That's funny. Robert said, you don't even need a drum room or set. Easy Drummer 3 or Ultimate will do everything you need. Here's the thing on that, Rob Portiger. A lot of drummers are not gonna like that. I'm talking about actual drummers. So saturation is compression, which will have an opposite effect. Right. Thanks, man, that's exactly right. So Agolf says multi-channel gate on a drum kit also stops bleed in a live setting. It cleans the drums. That we're adding a tiny bit of a reverb. Yeah, like I said, that's the biggest thing is because if you think about what's the 2 pieces of what's the 3 actually for the most part out of all of that, the drummer's hitting the most, the kick, snare, and hi-hat, right? Sometimes the crashes, um, which the overhead's going to catch the crashes. Um, but also the toms, he's not always hitting the high tom, mid tom, or floor toms. The most is always the snare, kick, and hi-hat. So the kick drum, because the snare and the kick are right next to each other, that's why you want to, especially if you have a mic below the snare, it's going to pick up that kick too, especially the beater head. So you definitely want to have gates. So let's see. Ignite record, Life Stranger. CC Funk, the Blue Room, where Incognito recorded Life Stranger than Fiction. Awesome sounds. Okay, Studio Angel sound. Gotcha. Okay, nice. So Deal said, man, October 25th, 2005, the video short called One Time to Get Back is sad, bro. Oh, I need to go back and look at that. I haven't seen that video. So Dave has Alzheimer's. Oh, wow. That's almost, it's kind of like when you see, I see, Dave Pensar is a legendary, recording mixing engineer. It's almost like the same thing to see sad what's happened to Bruce Willis, he's got a serious case of dementia. So Bruce doesn't even remember his acting career anymore, and we've seen all the videos from, the movies with Bruce Willis, Die Hard and all that. So yeah, that's the one thing that's, your mind, so yeah, I want to see it too. Which is wow. So he probably once Alzheimer's, wow. So thanks, man. He said, I got your back, Mark. Appreciate it. Robert says, my business partner is a drummer. He uses Easy Drum. Okay, well, if he doesn't mind, but it's almost like if I was a bass player and I decided I'm going to use ample bass instead of actually hiring my bass player, then it's like, well, if I was a bass player, like, then why'd what am I supposed to, but I get it because I use all that because I don't have a drummer. I have to do all the parts myself. So all the tracks that you hear in my studio, I'm doing it. And because I don't record, I program my drums, so I get it. Trust me, I get it. So Rockport said actual drummers use these. Nah. I'm not gonna say all that. Some drummers use Easy Drummer. I wouldn't speak for every drummer. So you gotta kind of so some drummers actually record, and the studios record real drums with they actually mic the real drums. So I wouldn't say that. But I feel you. Some drummers don't mind. Some drummers don't mind if that's the way they want to do it, So, but I'm not gonna sit there and say it's like guitar players that don't use, tools, like whatever the case, computer tools they do it. They, there's so many ways to do it, but so let's see. I've never heard of Amanda Lynn. Nah, had to check her out. Never heard of her. What does she sing? Some drummers use AI and have no drum. Yeah, that's true. A man says real drums here. Gotcha. Like they record my church every week, and he's definitely a real drummer. So, and that's on our YouTube feed from my church that I play every week. So, but the only thing is now if we can actually get an actual engineer, then it actually would actually sound good. Matty says you're in Nashville, but you haven't heard. No, I'm not in Nashville. That's the thing. I'm not in Nashville, but I do go to Nashville. But you got to remember, even if I was in Nashville, if I don't listen to country and western music, I would never heard of her. You know, that's almost like saying that's like me asking you, have you heard that you know, if you were here tonight by Alexander O'Neal. Do you know who Alexander O'Neal is? Maine, don't say that because I know Maine 57 knows who Alexander O'Neal is, but who all know who's Alexander? If you know who Alexander O'Neal is without Googling him and cheating, write it down in the comments in the chat, and you'll prove my point. So I don't listen to country western like that. So let's see. But I feel you know, she's probably, like I said, a sponsor as well. A real drummer, they're going to have at least a $3,000, $2,500. Yeah, right, exactly. A DW set of drums or whatever. Rock Porter says some drummers can't drum. Then they should. They probably should be playing drums if they can't drum. But I get it. You know, anyway, you can. They don't ask you how you won the game. They just ask you, did you win the game? However, whatever it takes to get the job done. So, Stewie says, I have 26 space rack cage. My gear seems to be getting warm. Do I? Yeah, yeah. A fan circulation definitely helps. So. Award says, then quantize and normalize it, retune it. Yeah, quantization. I've done plenty of quantizing on stuff. So, Robert says, how do you know there's a bad drummer at your door? The knock speed. Right. I kid you not. That is me as a keyboard player. That's a drummer that doesn't know how to keep, you know, to be able to play drums and still be able to do all the complicated, you know, paradiddles, and still aware of their timing and staying in the pocket. So, you know, and our Secret Studio says, I know who he is. And then Dave says, yeah, he's a fake. She's a fake, baby, because I can feel it. Now I know, because I can feel it. You're a fake. Yeah, that's Alexander O'Neal. I was just listening to him the other day. It's too bad he got stuck on drugs, but you know, especially with the duets with him and Sherelle. So, Matthew says Amanda Lynn is so common. I'm sure. You know what? I would not doubt she isn't. She's probably super common, but I don't know who it is because I don't listen to country and western like that. I just don't. I hear of certain country and western artists like Jason Aldean or whatever, you know, because you hear them. But you know, that's like me. I'm an R&B guy, so I'm an R&B gospel jazz guy. I'm not a country and western. So, and then LeGrand said the original leader of the time. No, the original leader of the time is Morris Day. Alexander O'Neal's always been his own artist. Now Alexander got produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. No, Morris Day is the original singer of the time, the original leader. I said, don't judge genres that you didn't listen to. Instead of just find the parts you like and compliment them. Everyone's cash gets spent on what you need, right? Like me, I don't judge any artist. But I don't know every artist. Like I don't know who some of the modern young artists are. You know, some people sit there like The Weeknd as an example. I've heard of The Weeknd. I just don't listen to his music. You know, I've heard of Andriana Grande. I just don't listen to her music. She's not my style of music to listen to. Uh, like Amanda Lynn, I've never heard of her, but I'm sure she's probably huge. Just never heard of her. Now I've heard of Carrie Underwood, you know, if that makes sense, but I don't listen to Carrie Underwood's music. I just don't. But Carrie Underwood's a great artist. Uh, let's see. But I'm sure it'll pop up if I, type in Amanda. So Deal says, did I know that EMU has headphones? There are for audio files. I don't have a pair. For headphones, other than just regular listening music, I hear earbuds, but other than that, when I have on headphones, they're the studio type for studio recording. So okay. Like I said, I get you. I get it. I get it. Maddie, I just don't know who she is. So, Dave says, I heard Prince fired him from the time. Yeah, more. Prince fired Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and that which gave Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis to just start getting into more production, which led them to producing Alexander O'Neal, Sherelle, and they got the opportunity to produce Janet Jackson, which moved them on to Sounds of Blackness and Midnight Star, and just the list goes on and on and on. So, let's see. Oh, I get you. Like I said, I'm just messing with you. Yeah, trust me. It's the only time you can get me riled up is like that one guy I had last week that he was purposely trying to, I don't know what he was trying to do, but I had to, people that wasn't live stream last week, I don't usually get. There's always that one that can get under your skin. I've gotten people that does that, So, Dio says, if you were here tonight, that's a beautiful song. Yep. Yeah, that's you know what? Prince moved Alexander out of the time and moved Morris Day to. Yeah, because I think Morris Day was the drummer. I think you might be right. I think you're actually right. I think you're right, Black Rain. I think you're exactly right. I think that is what happened. Which led to Alexander. Yeah, because I think you're right. Because I think Alexander, when he got kicked out of group, he ended up working with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who also got fired by Prince. Because the problem with the time was Prince was controlling the time, even though it was supposed to be Morris Day's group, but I guess it was Prince's money. So, but that whole thing was a mess. I'll say that, Prince there's a love-hate relationship with Prince. Genius, amazing musician. But all the stories I've heard about Prince, I'm starting to believe what Rick James was saying, and I'll leave it at that. Even though, rest in peace, both of them have passed away. Yeah, so they were free from the time. Yeah, because it was that whole Minneapolis thing. Yeah. Let's see. Okay, yeah, secret. Yeah, yep. I think, like I said, yep. So I think you're correct on that whole. And here's the thing, he said, Dio said, imagine getting fired by Prince, mascara dripping, make it run down his face because he's mad. The purple boot. That's a sad day. You know, um, and and only being 5 feet. Can you imagine? Hey, you're fired. Looking down, I'm fired. Short guy. So, um, oh, you're talking about I was more into Vanity. Yeah, that was Denise Matthews. Yeah, Denise Matthews. She was man. Denise Matthews was so gorgeous. I got to talk to these. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2016. But I got to talk to her a couple of years prior to that. She she would actually talk to you. Call her. You could talk to her, and that's what I did. I called her up, and she picked up the phone. We talked for an hour. She was such a sweetheart. I just hate that she was going through all that kidney. She was going through dialysis because she had kidney failure that happened. She was preaching. Um, it was just sad to see her suffering like that. But yes, she was such a sweetheart. Vanity, we call her Denise Matthews, gorgeous woman. Rockport Ticket said the problem with Prince was Prince. You should go back and listen to the stories about like when they were talking about when he was in a recording studio at Sunset Sound. Just Prince was a trip. But I think when you're that short and small, but you're that good, it can develop what they call a Napoleon complex. So he's probably, um, oh, it makes me wonder how great an artist truly was. They were not featured on, and I think when Dave Chappelle was talking about, he had this, the stories of Charlie Murphy, because Rick James and Eddie Murphy were really good friends, right? Well, that they all knew each other because Rick James toured with Prince. It's amazing how small the circle gets. But anyhow, Rick James, unlike Prince, who's played a lot of instruments, but people don't know Rick James played drums, piano, bass. But Rick James was a hell of a bass player, amazing bass player. And Rick James being 5'11" and Prince only being 5 feet. So, but Rick James, the reason why Rick James had a disdain for Prince is because Prince was trying to sabotage his shows. Prince out there throwing peanuts while he's trying to perform, because Prince didn't like the fact that if your show was as good or better than he is, because Prince got him humiliated a few times. He'll tell you that in some of the shows, and some of the musicians will tell you the stories of the musicians. Prince and the Revolution would tell you when some of the shows they did, Prince got booed and everything else. So Prince, which made Prince want to go back to the studio and work harder. That's why he would spend so much time in the studio and blah blah blah. Make a long story short, but yeah, that all of them knew each other, and of course, Vanity, and then of course Apollonia, and then of course they know Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who knows other producers, and and they all know each other. It's a smaller circle, so. It's a secret studio I was using to Lisa. Tomorrow I was when I wrote this, so fast. She had the other girl behind her. So Black Brand says my cousin was the original bass player for the SOS band. John Alexander Simpson. He has a lot of interesting stories from back. That's kind of cool. Yeah, the SOS band, that was my band too. Do 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 do. Man, I love the SOS band, but that's Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Especially Tell Me If You Still Care. That's all that arrangements is Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Them brothers was cold. So that's cool. I was saying, yeah, he's a hell of a producer. Um, so they got to learn and multi instruments, which have big ego to share. They can, yep. Um, yeah, you have to bring your A game. Yep, I agree with you, Ego. Yes, yeah, it's so yeah, just be good to me. Just be good to me. Yeah, and then of course, baby, time to do it right. You can do it, baby. Do it tonight. Do 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 do. Let's do it. Yeah, that was yeah. Um, it's a shame that R&B bands have fell off because the last one that we really had in the 90s, Mint Condition. But R&B bands of the 80s, man, that's me. From Midnight Stars, Star Point, uh, Confunction, Cameo, uh, or Rick James, yeah, especially in his prime. Rick, yep, yeah, Rick James is there. He went, yeah, I saw Rick James pop up from DL, yep. Especially Give It To Me. Do 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 you do 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 Yep, that was yeah. Last night. You want to make that do me? Yeah, now I'm gonna have to go back and reminisce when I get off the live stream. But let's see. Let's see what hearts. Today I tried a different mixed bus compressor. Wasn't doing it. Reverted back to I got to experiment with the two VCA. Gotcha. Um, I'm trying to, I know there's a couple of mixed bus compressors I'm looking at getting, and it's I'm gonna check out the. I'm gonna actually look at that Stam audio version of the SSL bus compressor because most of the time when I use a bus compressor, I'm using the plug-in. But I'm looking at that, and other than the knob problem, but I've heard as far as sound quality, great. No complaints about the sound quality of that Behringer 369. The only thing is they everyone says the same thing, the knobs. So just put better knobs on and you good to go. So I'm gonna see. We'll see. I did pick up a pair of new toys though. You probably can see them or maybe you can't see them. Even though I have the studio monitors, I do have the Cali Audio, but I did pick up a pair of Adam AAHs. They're sitting right there. So, yep, the Adam AAHs. I have those right there. So, next to my Calis. So those are my new toys. And then I'm give myself some early Christmas gifts. So, let's see, man. I wouldn't use a two mixed bus compressor VC. We are dial bridge for me. Okay, gotcha. Let's see. CC Funk. I bought a soul to soul. It says the music on it was the C recorder on the analog equipment there for you. You could hear other like tape hiss and other abnormal. Yeah, that's the only thing with even though excuse me. That's the one thing that believe it or not is subtle. Tape machines, I mean, especially with hiss, you're going through a lot of analog gear, you're bound to get some hiss. Noise. That was the biggest argument when it come to music, with engineers and using analog gear and all that was they wanted everything to be as quiet as digital. So it's kind of like, well, do we want to be completely digital or do we want to analog but eliminate the noise? So it really depends. So let's see. Wilmar says a tube-driven VCA, and then Brand says, "Oh, okay, a fat drummer works better." Gotcha. Okay, they just okay. They asked me, what did I think of D'Angelo? I think D'Angelo, uh, when he made like I Want Some Brown Sugar, that song, or You're My Lady, because that song was dedicated to Angie Stone. You're my lady by D'Angelo, because he was dating Angie Stones. So, you know, it's sad that, it's a lot of artists that have passed away. Some of my favorite rappers have passed away. Um, but even though we love to do this and be in the music industry and all that, the problem is, we're not immune from the same, like cancers and this. I can get Alzheimer's, or I can get, or muscular dystrophy, or MD or whatever. I can, I'm not special, that I'm not, that. So, yeah, it's just, it's part of life. I hate, it's tragic, but it's part of life that he died, and, D'Angelo died, but, it's tragic that how Angie Stone died, she was pretty much murdered, because, they didn't want to give her, she was exposing them stealing her royalties. So they, that, which is sad. They're going to fake it with a bus act, the accident. Um, so, oh man, that's just the new Adams. Yep, those are Adam A8. Um, I was looking at the Dying Audio Core 47s, but that's just a little bit more expensive than the Adams, so that's what I went to Adams. Um, so I hated. Oh, C6 Funks. I hate the floaters on one way. They got way too much airplay here. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Um, well, it's like my hometown, which is when people don't know, my hometown is Dayton, Ohio. So imagine there was 16 known funk bands from the 70s and 60s and 70s. So you imagine them playing them to death in Dayton, Ohio. In Dayton, Ohio, if you don't know, Ohio Players, Dayton, Ohio. Slave, walking down the street, watching ladies go by and watch. That's Dayton, Ohio. Heat Wave, Boogie, they're from Dayton. There is, let me think, let me keep going. Sun, Here Comes the Sun, they're from Dayton. There's a band called Dayton from Dayton, obviously. There is um, there's a lot of them, a lot of artists. Um, so imagine we had a radio station called WDAO, right? And they played Roger Troutman and Zap to death. I was so sick of hearing more bounce to the ounce. More, or I can make you dance if you want. I used to walk past Roger Troutman's recording studio all the time, because at that time we had there was a gas station across the street, and there was Lee's Famous Recipe fried chicken. So, and Lee's Famous Recipe was the, people might go to KFC or church, but that was the spot. So yeah, and band players from Zap will be going into Lee's Recipe, get big buckets and taking it to the studio. So yeah. Let's see. Um, let's see. I missed a few things. Let's see. Matthew says the Big Boy Adams. Also, yep. Yeah, had to get him. Let's see. Let's see how Dogfight is just to change the transformer to mic. Should I buy the transformer and let someone else solder it in? Our mic transformer is compatible with mic with all mics. And when it comes to transformer mic, you got to look at the circuitry. You can't just add a transformer to a mic that didn't have the circuit for it. So, but a lot of times those are output transformers. Transformers, like anything else, it's the harmonics of transformers that's the key to the sound. So you just got to kind of look at that. Um, but if really, you can actually go to microphoneparts.com. That's a really good source. And they have some really great do-it-yourself build kits uh, you can look at for if you're interested into trying to level up your microphone game. Believe me, that's a smart way you can build yourself some 67s or 87 or 47 tube microphones or whatever without spending that kind of money, because that's really what makes those microphones is the circuits. Um, the circuits themselves don't care what kind of housing it is. You know, the capsule, the microphone capsule, and the circuit and the transformer and the tube and all that. That's what's going to really make that, microphone. But you can buy a do-it-yourself kit, $300, $400, $500, $600 microphone kit, and get the same equivalency of a $20,000 microphone if you're willing to build it. Microphoneparts.com. And I'm not getting paid for that. That is a fact. So let's see. Oh, it says Secret Studio says I have to find a cheap table saw, so I need to see if I have a portable DeWalt can handle a gotcha. I do have a table saw. It's in my storage shed. I need to go check on it because it's in my storage shed. I haven't used it in a while, but I do have a table saw. I have a handheld saw, a jigsaw, and some other saws. I bought all that stuff because I took wood shop when I was in school. So I want to build some handmade racks myself. So okay. Oh, he said Manny Nieto's Mic Locker is a mic mod channel. Like the microphone I'm talking on right now. It's a modified MXL model number 2006, but I upgraded the caps in it. Made it sound a little bit warmer. This microphone right here it was a $100 eBay special that I modified. So Ego says analog clipping is good. Digital clipping is real bad. Yeah, especially, and especially if you how you hit it on tape. Analog clipping still may be kind of bad if you hit it too hard in your audio interface. You got to kind of watch the. I'll see someone says slide passes. Yeah, he just passed. Yeah, my cousin, she used to be a background singer in Sly and the Family Stone. She knew him personally, because she was a background singer for him. So. Was Jaguar Wright correct when she said saying that some of the former partners' business? It's so much, like I said, with the Andy Stone, that they were suspicious of that whole deal, especially when she's the only one who was killed in that whole thing. So a lot of people think that she was already dead when that accident happened. So it's a lot. Yes, very, very. Yep. Oh, Dave says Heat Wave, Rod Temperton, excellent songwriter for the minute. Yep. Even Rod Temperton's the one that wrote Thriller for Michael Jackson. It was going to be called Twilight Night. Twilight Night. That's what, according to Bruce Swedien, then they changed it to Thriller. Thriller Night. They changed it from Twilight Night to Thriller. But Rod Temperton is the one that did that, and he wrote that entire arrangement. Yep. Keyboard, he's played keyboards for Heatwave. They met in Germany. So, and then Dave says, Roswell Audio, you don't want to build a mic. Or yeah, Roswell Audio. I've heard of them too. Dave says, I'm hearing good things about the Dockman 87. Forget his name. I comment on the channel and I said, you can hear really the difference on. It's kind of like with these clones and these companies now that are making clones of all the top gears. Like the stuff is sounding just as good as the vintage. So I'm like, why would you spend $5,000 on a Newman 87? Why not buy the document for that? What is it, $699? Why not? Or whatever the case. So let's see. I hit a few more comments, and then after that, we're gonna wrap it up. Uh, so uh, so and let's see. Let's see. Let me see. Let me see. Go on my. Let's see. Okay. No inhibitions. Do you make beats? No, I don't really do beats like in like hip hop beat. No, I do not. But I do make music track for like production. But that's for artists if I'm working in production stuff with artists. Like actual musical arrangements, like where it's bass and keyboards and strings and horns, and yeah, I do that. But it's just making beats. No, yeah, not a hip hop guy. So um so other than that, so I'm going to summarize what I was talking about in the video from the very beginning. So to basically in summary, when it comes to the pros and cons of building a recording studio, um if you are thinking about, let's say you want to do that, let's say your dream is, because that's always been my dreams, to actually have a recording, a commercial style type of recording studio. But once I get to looking at the cost of it, it's like um and then all the pros, because another thing to tell you about, you got to worry about different types of clients that you're dealing with, because not every client treats those recording studios well. um on that, the cost, um it's expensive. It's really, really expensive. So um a man says, how about, I'm about to build a new one. I'll break down the cost of you. That would be, that would be a good video to do where, okay, do a build. It costs this much for the wood, this much for the wiring, this much for this much for that, line by line. That would actually be a good, you know, or what on this video when I end it, um, if you want to put the cost, like put it in a comment, so that way when people see this video, they can see in a comment, it cost me for this amount of wood, it cost me for this amount of cable, it cost me this much to do the lighting, it cost me this much for to do the paneling, it cost me this much for to do the patch bay, it cost me this much for this. I spent this much on the console, I spent this much on outboard gear, I spent this much on mic stand. That would be a great to do that, that way, and then put a total amount. Um, that way people can actually get an idea, like, oh wow, that would include all the not thing, furniture, a front desk, um, and so forth. How much did I spend for that computer, even the monitor, the phone system, you know, even the cost of the overhead, the staff. I'm paying my maintenance crew this. Yep, everything. Yep, everything. And that way people realize it's way more expensive than you think. Um, so all righty. So that's gonna do it for this live stream. Um, and like I said, I'm getting some more video gear so that way, and I'm going to see how this work when I go through OBS Studio and all that, and because this lag is, I can't do this lag anymore. I can't do it. So I want to thank everyone for popping in. Pretty good amount of people tonight. Um, and thank everybody. And if the game is on, so hope if you're watching football, except for Maddie's in Australia. But if you're into American football, hope your football team is winning. People think I'm gonna be mad at that. I'm glad Kansas City lost too. I'm just burnt out on the Chiefs. So anyhow, Y'all have a great one, and we'll see you next time.